Hello, beautiful beings, and welcome to your Headnoise episode of this week. This is a voice note Headnoise episode where you guys send in your voice messages. If you're interested, if you listen to this episode and you're like, fuck, I'd love to do that. I really just want to hear my voice and share my voice with the world, then you can do that. Just go to dyfmpod.com and there's a little thing there where you can submit a voice message. It's around 90 seconds, I think. You can also email in your questions if you don't want to send in a voice message. But I love the combination of both. I absolutely love it. And I love hearing your voices and your accents around the world. It's just the best. Now, no life update because, as I've mentioned earlier, I've banked episodes up to my eyeballs before I went on mat leave. So right now there's probably crazy updates, but as I'm recording this, I'm still heavily pregnant with two children swimming around in my ribcage. Anyway, let's get straight into it. I've got 4 that I would like to get to in this episode. So let's dive in.
Hi, Alexis. Big fan, long time listener. I've just been listening to your episode about how to harness cortisol for energy, and you talk a lot about the importance of exposing yourself to sunlight as soon as you can after you wake up in order to get that spike in cortisol, which is great in theory. However, I live in Scotland where we don't get a lot of sunlight. Even in the height of summer, it's more often than not cloudy and grey and miserable. It's not very often that we get sort of direct sunlight here. So I was wondering if you had any ideas, either sort of artificial sources of that same sort of light that give the same effect, or alternative methods to get that spike in cortisol. So yeah, if you've got any advice, that would be great. Thank you.
Fucking epic question. This is a really, really, really good question because I've got a great answer for you. So I think I'm pretty sure I've done an episode where it's not the title of the episode though, so I'm trying to think how I could find this so I could reference it to you. But anyway, I'll just talk about it now. Basically, very much like you said, the importance of sunlight in the morning is extremely important for the cortisol spike, but also to regulate your circadian rhythm. So we know the science shows that regulated circadian rhythm, the cortisol spike in the morning, thanks to this the largest source of blue light you're ever going to get, which is from the sun, thanks to all of that, helps with mood regulation, lowering rates of depression, helps with focus, attention, all of that. To the extent that, exactly like you just mentioned, in countries where either the sunlight is really low, especially in the winter months, or there are some countries where the sun really isn't coming up at all, and even if it does come up, it's extremely gloomy, it's not bright enough. These people, many individuals report having something called seasonal affective disorder, which is actually like seasonal depression, basically, that goes away when the summer rolls around. And then there's certain countries, like you just said, where even in the summer, it's often going to be quite gloomy. So what do they do in these situations? Because we actually see a dip in people's moods and a spike in depression when there is not significant source of sunlight and when you aren't able to kind of really set your circadian rhythm. A really healthy circadian rhythm also helps with your mood. There is something you can do for that, and it is called light therapy. Now, there's many different ways of doing it. So if you're like, I just want to expose myself to light, I'm sure that you could get cheaper sources of this, but you want to it's like a light box. Now, for people that have seasonal affective disorder, they're exposing themselves to a very strong source of blue light, kind of like they're sitting, not their whole body, but like their face, and in kind of this very strong light box where it's filtering in a lot of blue light, and they do this early in the morning or when they wake up. And it kind of starts to wake up all the centers and all those, all the neurochemicals and neurotransmitters, that cascade of events that occurs in the brain when you're exposed to sunlight in the morning. It's mimicking that through this light exposure therapy. Now, you might want to go all the way and do something like that. I actually don't know what the cost of these light boxes are, but as long as you can find a very strong source of a blue light, that is going to give you a similar effect. I'm going to link in this episode some potential ideas for what you could do just in the show notes of this episode, some potential ideas of what that light box therapy even looks like. I'm sure there's different pricing points, but 100% it exists. It is very much used in countries where seasonal affective disorder goes up in those winter months. But again, if you're living in a country where you're just not getting consistent, adequate, significant sunlight in the mornings, this is a great, great method, and it mimics what the sun does. It is a nice, strong hit of light to the brain, and it has that same kind of carry-on effect on the brain, on your circadian clock, on your mood. They found that people that do this light therapy that have seasonal affective disorder, it actually significantly reduces the symptoms of their seasonal affective disorder, of that depression. So please give it a go. I'd love for you to try that out and then report back to me and see if you found a difference. At the very least, you should find that it definitely helps you wake up more. I even find that obviously, we're very spoiled with a lot of sun in Australia, so I cannot complain. But even in winter, and especially with daylight savings and things like that, the sun isn't as bright as early in the morning. And I find that when I go up to Queensland, which is a state that's north of where I live, for those of you that aren't from Australia, the sun rises a whole lot earlier because they don't have daylight savings. And I am bouncing out of bed at 5:30 in the morning because there's bright sun coming in through the windows, versus when it's darker and gloomier in Sydney in winter until a little bit later in the morning, and I struggled to wake up. So I think the sun plays such a huge role in that energy and, intensity of how you can wake up in the morning and feel really good and alert. So great question. Give that a go. I would love to hear if this helps you. And also another thing that you can get, which is separate to this therapy, is an alarm clock which mimics a sunrise. I don't know if you've seen this, but at the very least it helps bring in like really bright amounts of light into your bedroom. So at least it helps you wake up, because waking up in a dark room is always going to be harder than waking up in a well-lit room. So it's like this alarm clock that you set. Say you want to wake up at, let's say, fucking 6:30. This thing, it's like this little glowing light that mimics a sunrise, and it starts to kind of turn on from maybe like 6:15, and then by the time it's 6:30, it is really brightly lighting up your room. So that's another option that you could try as well. Amazing. Thank you for your question. Great, great question. All right, next question.
Hi, Alexis, lover of the pod, and I'm currently listening to your new book, which is incredible. Loved it so far. Right now I'm listening to, I think it's module 2, chapter 2, where you're talking about how we kind of just like predispose ourselves to create this own image of ourselves and what we're capable of, and hold us back from the things maybe we want to do because we feel that that's who we are. And that's just kind of something that I've been struggling with lately, in terms of, I feel like I'm quite an introverted person. Like, I can be extroverted when I need to be, but more so introverted, and like struggle sometimes to come out of my shell, especially around people I don't know too well. And I'd love to know maybe your tips on how to break out of that, because I'm sure for many other people as well, it can just be this real like crippling anxiety of, oh my God, like I know I could just speak up right now in this group discussion, but my body's physically like not letting me do it. But yeah, I'd love to hear your advice, because yeah, I'm always wanting to speak out and give my thoughts sometimes in those group discussions with people I may not know as well, but just really struggle to. And it's definitely a mindset thing, but I'd love to know some tips.
Awesome question. Love it. Okay. So firstly, I think that one of the modules that she's referring to as well, for those of you that haven't listened to the audiobook or read the book, How to Chase Change. But this, it has to do with like our identity and what we really identify with. And sometimes we end up kind of blocking ourselves or cock blocking ourselves from new things that we could bring into our identity that would really serve us, like personality traits as an example, or a belief structure that would really serve us. But we so heavily identify with old beliefs that then we find it hard to try something new or to behave in a new way or to, like you said, to speak up in front of a group of people or whatever. So you mentioned that you were an introvert. And I think a lot of people think if I'm going to label myself as an introvert, then that comes with all these other things that an introvert is. But I want you to say, like, get really clear on what an introvert means to you. Because an introvert, you can still be the introvert, but not be shy. I think a lot of people think an introvert is shy, timid, reserved, can't speak up for themselves or their mind. But that's not the case at all. Some of the boldest people that I know, who are the most comfortable in their own skin, who have no qualms in speaking their mind in a respectful manner, are introverts, okay? So firstly, get clear on what an introvert is in a way that makes you feel empowered. So a good way of looking at introvert versus extrovert, a good way that I like to describe it as, is introverts have their batteries charged when they are more alone or when it's a one-on-one conversation or more so in solitude and that like less social stimulation. That's when their batteries are charged. And when they go out for social events, it has nothing to do with liking it or not liking it. They might quite enjoy it, but it's draining for them. It's exhausting. So it's they can do it, but to an extent. And then they're like, I've fucking reached my fucking limit. I'm out of here. But it doesn't mean that they're shy, timid, can't, whatever. So you could say to yourself, I'm an introvert. I can do big social gatherings to an extent, and I can really kind of maximize my time there, my experience there. It's going to be great. But I know that ultimately, if I want to have my batteries recharged, it's going to be in the more one-on-one interactions, or I really like my solitude. An extrovert, on the other hand, gets their batteries charged through social interactions, through big group settings, through going out, being out and about in public with people, and they thrive of that, okay? And then if they spend too much time alone, they feel depleted. I think that I'm an ambivert because I need both. I absolutely need my alone time. I will fucking die if I don't have like that, mellow alone time. But then I love the social side. So putting all of that aside, reframe how you look at being an introvert, number one, because then it'll give you a lot more power. You can sit in that power being like, I'm a very empowered introvert, okay? And then from there, when you want to speak up in a group, you want to think of like a ladder structure of what's going to make me feel comfortable, and then I'm going to try that behavior. And then once I get used to that behavior, what can make me feel comfortable again? So one thing that people do that are people pleasers or that get uncomfortable is that they will agree with things that they don't necessarily really agree with, but they will just be like, oh, yep, nodding. And that's the first step that you're like, well, I wish I didn't do that because it's actually not the truth and I struggle. So the first step would be just don't agree. You could say, that's an interesting perspective. Tell me more about your perspective. At no point are you agreeing, but you're also not blatantly disagreeing. So you don't have that like, oh, I can't just straight up disagree or I can't straight up speak up. Once you feel comfortable with that, then you can start to say, that's interesting that you think that way because I always looked at it from this perspective. That's when you can start to, if you feel comfortable, share it from your perspective, So it's not an attack of like, I need to stop you right there. This is what I'm going to say. Even if you completely disagree with someone or you want to speak your mind or you want to whatever, there's always really, seamless ways that you can do it that feel comfortable to you. But I would recommend that you start with step one, then once that feels second nature to you, then bring in step two, then step three, then step four. Then you become really good at debating absolute strangers in a very respectful way and you can have a lot of fucking fun if the other person is good at debating as well. So that's what I would recommend. Number one, change your mindset around what an introvert means to you because you can still be very empowered, very confident as an introvert. And number two, ask yourself, what is the main behavior that I'm avoiding when I'm in these social interactions? Is it, I find that I end up agreeing and nodding when I don't actually agree? Is it, could I just say something that's relatively neutral, but I still honor what I actually want to say and what I actually believe when I'm in a social situation? So I can say, you don't have to say, I disagree with you. You could say, how did you come to that conclusion? I'm really interested. Talk to me about whatever. You get more out of people. You start digging and people love talking about themselves. So they will start opening up to you and they're like, well, the reason I came to... And then you can just start asking questions. The amount of times that I don't even have to blatantly disagree with someone. I just ask them all these questions without ever once agreeing with them. And they, by the end of it, I think they gather that we're not on the same page, but they also gather that I'm interested enough to know where they're coming from. And then they probably will start asking you about your perspective, and that's where you can start to talk about differences in perspectives and opinions and things like that, okay? So I think that's how I would approach it. Your mindset around what you believe you are, because you could be a very confident introvert, and also, tactics, social tactics that will help. Also, there's an episode that's now, because I'm banking so many episodes, I don't know if this episode is about to come or if it's just come, but if it hasn't, this is all about charisma. And I think it's coming up. I don't know the order that I'm recording these episodes, but it is about how charisma is learnt. And I teach you like the 12 main traits of how to become charismatic. So if that episode has come out, definitely listen to it. If it hasn't yet come out, it's going to come out in the next couple of weeks. So listen to the episode, because it will also help you with these specific social settings where you are having conversations with people that you absolutely don't know, where I teach you how to become more charismatic, irrespective of if you're an introvert or if you're an extrovert. So thank you so much for that question. I loved it. Next, final one.
Hi, Alexis. I heard a quote that was like, your first hit of dopamine in the morning is the source of dopamine that you will crave throughout the rest of the day. I was wondering if you could talk more about that and morning routines in general. I would love a whole episode on morning routines. Thank you so much. I love the podcast.
Thank you so much for sending in that question. Okay, that's it's interesting question. I don't know if I 100% agree with it, but I kind of get where it's stemming from. So I'll elaborate in a second. Also, I really do need to do an entire episode on morning routines, so I will definitely write that down, because I'd like to do one on like various different kinds of morning routines that work for different people, because I've shared my specific one, which is probably going to change very soon because I'm going to have fucking children. But yeah, so my morning routine is going to evolve many times over in the near future. But yes, I need to do an episode on that. Okay, when it comes to dopamine, the reason why I kind of agree, but then I kind of disagree with that quote is it's a lot more loaded than that. So when we what I mean by this is when you wake up, the first source of dopamine is a kind of addictive, quick hit, no effort needed dopamine, like cheap dopamine, like checking your phone, which is the main one for most people, you are way more likely to seek that kind of dopamine for the rest of the day, and I'll tell you why. It's not because, it's the first thing I did in the day and now that sets the tone. It's because of what happens when we go for that kind of dopamine versus earned dopamine. So you want to look at dopamine as kind of a spike and then a return to baseline. Now, when we engage in addictive behaviors that require little to no effort, gambling, being on your phone, obviously chemical addictions are next level hits of dopamine. We get quite a significant sharp spike because there was no effort involved, so it's not a gradual lift of dopamine, it's bang, straight away. And then the issue is that then we get a drop below the baseline. So the dopamine doesn't just return to where it was before you opened your social media. It drops below that. And then there's a bit of a washout period before your dopamine goes kind of back up to that baseline and then back up again. The only way to get it back up again straight away is to engage in yet another addictive behavior. That is why we look at our phones, then we lock our phone, put it down, and then within moments, without even realize back, we're looking at our phone again because we want that hit again, okay? Now, dopamine, in addition to that, is not only just your addictive chemical or, dopamine is your willingness to do something. It is the motivation chemical. And what I mean by motivation chemical is that we believe that when we're about to do something, dopamine is released not just once we've got that reward, but in anticipation of that reward. So that's why dopamine is your willingness to do something. So if you do something that's going to deplete your dopamine below your baseline, you are going to be less willing, less willpower to do other things. So that's why I agree and I disagree with that statement. So it's true, but it's a lot more complicated than that, if that makes sense. So If I'm going for the quick hits of dopamine, then I'm likely to chase those quick hits for the rest of the day because I don't have the willpower anymore. I've depleted my willingness to do other things, the harder things that require effort. On the flip side, if I wake up and I chase effort-based dopamine, I go out in the sun, I go for a run, I meditate, I do a workout, whatever it is that I choose to do, I'm getting this nice gradual, not that gradual, by the way, like it's still a nice spike. It's not that slow, but it's not an instant hit. So I get this gradual bang, releases dopamine, it goes up, feels really good, and then it starts to taper, but it doesn't drop, it doesn't dip below the baseline where I feel, I'm depleted, I've got no, it stays relatively healthy. So then when we get home from the workout and the sun and whatever, the exposure to sunlight and all of that, we're not then like, I don't want to do anything. We've got more dopamine than what we had before. And therefore we are willing to do things that require effort. Our willingness to do things, our willpower literally goes up because of how we have harnessed the different kind, like it's still dopamine. Dopamine is dopamine across the board, but the release rate of that dopamine will determine how willing we are to do things versus how willing we are to reach for the next big hit or the next quick hit. So if you feel that, I just have no willpower in the morning, no like desire, then look at which kind of are you going for a cheap hit, quick, instant gratification dopamine, or is it earned? And that's kind of going to really differentiate how you're going to feel moving on throughout the day. And something that I found, at least anecdotally, for me and for a lot of listeners that have written in and also stated the same thing, but I don't know if there's studies backing it, so I need to research it, but at least anecdotally, is that I have found that when my mornings are focused around the slower release of dopamine, exercise, walking, all of that, and then waiting a few hours, ideally 1 hour, but 2, if I can get 2 hours, it's even better, of not being on my social media, not being on my phone, then I find that even when I do go on my phone, it's less of a thrill, right? Because I've already feel quite fulfilled in my day. I can be on my phone, but I'm like, yep, this is good. It feels nice, but it's much of a muchness. I don't have to have it, okay? So when you start doing things that make you feel fulfilled in the day, exercise, interacting with people, good conversations, working on something that requires effort, that matters to you. Are you writing a book? Are you writing music? Are you practicing an instrument? Whatever it is, those things are going to make you feel quite fulfilled, that then when you do have those addictive things right in front of you, they're just going to be less addictive. It's kind of like a take it or leave it kind of thing. Go listen to my Rat Park episode if you want more insight into that subject that I'm, about feeling more fulfilled. So that was great. Great question. And yeah, in a way, yes, that statement is true, but it's just a little bit more complicated and deeper than that. So hopefully that gave you a good explanation of what I mean. Thank you so much for sending in your voice messages. I love the voice messages. That is all for today's episode. As always, guys, remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to your brain. Don't take shit from anyone, and especially don't take shit from yourself. Duncan.